Alright guys, so this is another Patreon request, and this one comes from Tom Hibbert, who basically asked me to do a crossover between two titles that I wouldn't think initially of having. I wouldn't think of having it. But the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, this could really work. This could be this could be a cool idea if you really put your thought into it, because there's some neat parallels to really play with. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to do I thought it'd be kind of cool to finally talk about this, and yeah. So as you can see from the title, this is Candyman versus Robocop. Now, I know what you're thinking. Robocop versus Candyman? How does that even work? Well, we're going to get into this story and find out. So, Robocop versus Candyman starts off in a bar. This little dive bar out in Detroit. And basically, it's this little Lions dive bar. You know, you've seen sports bars before. They're all all for the team. And it's a Lions-Bears game on the TV. And, it sucks. It's the Lions and the Bears. What do you want me to say? Sports fans, you'll understand. But they're all talking about the guys are this team sucks. This game is just torture to watch. There ain't no way this could be this. There's no way two teams can just fail at sucking. And one guy goes, oh, man, it ain't about it's not about how bad they are. It's all about tradition, It's all been about the War of the North with all the NFC North teams, and how these how there's a rivalry there between Chicago and Detroit. Kind of playing on the whole one's from Detroit, one's from Chicago. And yeah, so a couple minutes later, everyone gets slaughtered in that bar, except for one person. So Robocop arrives on the scene and is basically trying to figure out what's going on. And they're it's no worry, Murphy. We caught the perp. It's fine. We already caught the perp. It's all good. And they're and Murphy's who was the perpetrator? And they pull out this young African American kid who was hiding in the bathroom begging to be saved. And he's it wasn't me. And Robocop's detection unit hears his voice and is I believe there is an 89.6% chance that he is telling the truth. And he's there's still 11% chance that he's telling a lie. You can't trust these animals, Murphy. And he's the only animals I'm not trusting are the ones holding the child in the handcuffs. Take him out of him now. So they take him out, and Robocop talks to the kid, and he's so what happened? What did you hear? Did you see anything? He's I just heard I heard someone go into the bath. I was using the bathroom, right? And then I heard someone go into the bathroom behind me. I was in the stall, but I heard someone come in behind me and say, look into the mirror. I didn't get his face, but they walked in and looked in the mirror, on the sink mirror, and said a word 5 times. I think it was a name. And he's what was? Can you remember the name? And he's yeah, it was Candyman. And he's thank you, sir. We will, we will look into it. Of course, the other cops are it's gotta be that guy, right? And he's and Robocop is immediately I sincerely doubt one young man is capable of murdering an entire bar full of people in such a brutal fashion with no weapons. And need I remind you, it's a young man with no priors. But some of you have assault charges against you. So so keep that in mind, officers. Good day. So Robocop, Murphy starts looking into, he starts digging around and trying to figure out the, he starts backwards checking for all the stuff about Candyman. And he learns about Daniel Robitaille. He learns about about what happened with Helen. He even looks into other cases. He's been talking about there's been cases as far as Sherman Fields or back in the 70s. There's also events that happened in Louisiana and LA, obviously referring to the 2 sequels. And he also reads about a thing that happened in 2019 because that movie's maybe set in 2020, but it was set in 2019. So he like looks and he's like, fascinating. Because Murphy's like, it has to be like someone like a copycat killer. It has to be like someone who basically is like copying it or like pretending to be Robotide, and he's like trying to figure out what that means. Like, what does that ensue? And he's like digging further and further into this case. Like, he just keeps going further and further into what all of this is about. Like, he's trying to figure out like every little detail. He's like talking to people at Cabrini Green. He's talking to, because he asks, like, he walks around Cabrini Green, like he goes all the way to Chicago, and like the Chicago PD is like, hey, Tin Man, you're a little out of your jurisdiction here, bud. And he's like, I'm sorry, officers, I don't mean to intrude. I am investigating a case in Chicago. So and he's like, I wanted to learn about a event that had several officers killed in Cabrini Green. He's like, that's off limits. Like, we're not, like, we don't talk, like, that one is off limits. We don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, I'm certain you do, officer. So I was like, I will come back with a warrant to get this from you if I have to. But eventually, like, Murphy leaves empty-handed. Like, he's just tied up in like paperwork and whatnot, and he's like, I knew, like, they blackballed me. I'm supposed, so much for the band of Blue Brothers. Like, I just got blackballed. So Murphy goes to Cabrini Green himself, and he investigates the whole thing. He learns about Helen. He learns about what happened in 2019. He learns about all of it. But as he's like digging further and further into all of this madness, like the more he like digs into this insanity, the more he like starts to sense something is following him. And it is exactly who you think. It's Candyman. It's Daniel Robitaille, who has been following him, and like he's invisible to his sensors. Like Robocop like detects something, feels like that, like he has like a human sense, like someone's watching him, and then like he gets struck in the back, and he's like, what the hell was that? And there are other times where it's like his sensors and his cybernetic parts are like looking around, and like they're detecting an anomaly, but he can't see it. Like it's invisible to his sensors. He's going like infrared. He's doing all of this, and like it's just not showing up. But keeps saying anomaly detected. So eventually, what happens is that Robocop, Murphy he basically discovers a cult to Robitaille, and it's all these people who've been hurt by policemen. It turns out, that bar that in Detroit, that was a police bar, and it's all these people who've been hurt by police and the law and betrayed by it, and they've been calling themselves the cult of the hive of the cult of candy, and they're also known as the Hive. So basically what it is a bunch of people who've been wronged by cops or wronged by the law, and they all have been championing Robitaille as this person, like this act of vengeance on them. So they've been going around using Candyman to kill people, and Robitaille's like, my congregation grows. Like every time, like it's a win-win for him because he gets to kill, and he also, like, more of his fear and terror, and more people become interested in him because of that. Like the congregation continues to like expand and grow around him. So of course Murphy and him throw down. Like when it gets to the throwdown, I thought it'd be kind of fun because Robitaille, I got tongue-tied there for a second. Robitaille basically brings up all this stuff like, were you not unjustly struck down and created a monster as I was? And he's like, I fight for the law. Do you? Or do you fight for another man's pockets? Interesting thought, don't you think? They're both like Robitaille is basically like getting in Murphy's head about being like like being a monster like him, and also like killing killing for other people's amusement, kind of like how when people say the name 5 times, it's a lot, and it gets in his head. And also, like, it's hard for Murphy to fight Candyman because you can't kill the undead. He's a spirit. So when he shoots him, he can knock him over and he can fall over, but he'll get right back up or vanish and teleport somewhere else. And like I said, he's not picking up on the scanner. He's not picking him up on the scanners. So it's a tough time for him. It's a real tough time for him. And it's a really just fascinating. It's a real fun. It would be a real fun throwdown. Just those two, going at each other. But I think how I'd have the story end is that Murphy finds out that the cult has the soul the mirror that holds his soul, that holds Robotai's soul, and he destroys it and it kills him. But the thing is that Murphy knows he can't kill him because now there are like websites blowing up about him. There are like all this stuff, and people are talking about like the Candyman killings in the news, and like and he goes, the congregation grows. He'll be back. And I'll be ready. So there you go. There is Robocop versus Candyman. You guys tell me in the comments below, what did you guys think of it? I'd like to thank Tom Hibbert for this Patreon request. And as always, if you'd like a Patreon request done, just hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon. But other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.